In a massive series of updates from Jeff Passan, the New York Mets just went all in on their team finally, as fans have been waiting for this, as we have multiple different updates covering the Mets right now, showing how they've went all in on this offseason finally. And guys, there is a lot to go over, as the Mets right now have had what's been described as a quiet offseason. Outside of the signing of Jorge Polanco, there really hasn't been too many moves, and also obviously trading for Marcus Semien, but the team still needs to go out there and get more done. They're not looked at as a true contender right now. They don't have all the right pieces yet, and they need to add more talent to the roster. Well, now we know a whole lot, specifically in regards to the best free agent on the market right now, as there has been a ton of talk surrounding what's going to happen with them. And from comments from ESPN, from Jeff Passan, from others, the New York Mets and Kyle Tucker look like a pairing now, just waiting to happen. And this is absolutely huge, guys, especially when after they get Tucker, they will not be done making moves either. Now the Mets are really snapping back, showing that, hey, we got the money to make moves, and we are going to make moves at all costs. Look, Tucker is the prize of free agency. There is no way around that. And John Heyman said it will be one of the teams, whether it's the Mets, the Blue Jays, or the Dodgers, on the latest covering Kyle Tucker. Obviously, that is a huge sign for the Mets to bring in a guy who was the best player in the offseason, still is the best player in the offseason, even though coming off of a down year. With Tucker in New York, he would likely be able to hit near 40 home runs every year. He's a great base runner, steals bases like there's no tomorrow, gets on base really well, and does all the things you want from an MLB star. But there are some caveats to all of this, including the Mets also going for another move as well. But before we dive into all the news today, this video is brought to you by Kalshi. And if you download it using the link below and enter the code DIGESTMLB, you'll get $20 when you trade your first 100. Now, Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the United States. And on their platform, you can trade yes, no on real life events, whether that's sports, the news, elections, weather, and pretty much everything. And whether you're in New York, California, Texas, or anywhere else across the country, Kalshi is live in all 50 states. Now, for sports fans, you can trade on game outcomes, playoff chances, or player performances, all on a regulated market where you can cash out at any time. Now, guys, right now, the NFL playoffs are about to kick off, and what we are seeing is a very competitive AFC right now, and depending on the team that you decide to trade on, you can get a very nice payout. I believe the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, who I think is the best player in the AFC, will pull off being the AFC champions, and we will see Josh Allen play in his first Super Bowl. And if you trade $10 on that, you will get $52 back. It's a great deal, guys. And remember, if you use the code DIGESTMLB, that is DIGESTMLB, you get $20 when you trade your first 100. But let's get into the news today, guys. We have a lot to go over. Now look, obviously when we go into a situation like Kyle Tucker, you want to see a few things, and we have seen more than one thing come out. First of all, according to Jim Duquette, the Mets have went up to 4 years now on a Kyle Tucker deal that has opt-outs, and Steve Cohen is involved in the process. Two things you do want to see, as the Mets are clearly trying to convince Kyle Tucker to sign there, and it looks more and more likely that that is going to happen. Tucker had what's necessarily defined as a down year, and I mean, it was for Tucker. For any other MLB player, this would be seen as a career year. But that's how good Kyle Tucker is. That's what we have to be aware of here. This is a down year for Kyle Tucker. And still in this, most of his baseball savant numbers grade out at great, as good as they could possibly be. So that is the Kyle Tucker that the Mets are trying to sign. Except that is the worst version of Kyle Tucker that the Mets are going to sign. These numbers, if anything, will just climb right up, as it'll be an absolutely excellent signing. Now, a few different reports have come out. As Robert Murray said, the Mets have offered $50 million per season on a short-term contract to Kyle Tucker. I expect Tucker to take this deal. It makes too much sense. The Mets' $50 million per year offer to Tucker, as according to Passan, reported by Jesse Rogers, is a good place to start, particularly for a team not interested in a longer-term deal. Sometime within the next week, Tucker is going to decide where he'll play for the foreseeable future, and landing the best player in free agency for the second consecutive season, even if he is redundant, is kind of the power move that money teams have the luxury of making. And that honestly makes a good point. At the end of the day, I completely see this. I see where they're coming from. And when we look at all the good free agents out there, Tucker still is the best one. Now, obviously, there's a few guys at the top right here. We see Cody Bellinger, Ranger Suarez. We see Bo Bichette, Lucas Giolito. Oh, and Framber Valdez, who has the second highest market value. Well, obviously, with the Mets going for Kyle Tucker, you start to think, all right, well, how much money are they really going to spend when they've been a little lax this year? Would they really go for Framber Valdez? Would they do that? Oh, you bet they would. And they're going to, as Jeff Passan also did mention. Now, Passan said, with or without Tucker, Framber Valdez makes too much sense for the Mets to not place him atop a rotation with Nolan McLean, David Peterson, Clay Holmes, and Sean Manaea, with Jonah Tong and Brendan Sproat back in the minor leagues for further seasoning. Yeah, Steve Cohen woke up. He's awake! Because now also seeing Framber Valdez news when the Mets initially weren't seeming too interested in him, that has obviously changed as well. Now it looks like the Mets will go out there and try to land Valdez, who had a 3.8 WAR last season with a 3.66 ERA. He's not a strikeout guy, so the whip is a little bit elevated because he is going to allow some guys on base when he's a great ground out pitcher. And he's a workhorse. Pitched 192 innings. That's very, very, very impressive. Valdez gives the Mets another weapon to use towards the top of their rotation as they continue to build up starting pitching, which desperately needs to get built up. Obviously, it's a good idea. Now, is Valdez an elite pitcher by any sense of the word? No, but he is a good pitcher overall. He's not going to allow a ton of runs. He's going to do a good job of getting you out. His ground ball percentage is through the roof. And ultimately, he is a good pitcher. Now, I would prefer Ranger Suarez. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. It also weakens the Phillies, which is one of the reasons why, but also I just think Ranger Suarez is the better pitcher. However, Valdez does give the Mets a workhorse guy for a rotation that's both inexperienced and injury-prone. When you look at that, Valdez does make more sense than Suarez, as Suarez has shown some injury issues himself, and is not the workhorse that can just go a casual 7 innings on any given day that Framber Valdez ultimately can give. That's a big part of the Mets' interest in Valdez, is an innings eater type of guy. It's also one of the reasons why they've been linked to Zach Gallen, because he can eat innings up just as well. So, obviously with that, it's interesting, and also seeing that Mark Feinsand a while back did say the Orioles and Mets have been the two clubs most often connected to Valdez, which makes perfect sense given that the top baseball operations executives for each team have history with the left-hander. Orioles president of baseball operations, Mike Elias, with the Astros scouting director, or was the Astros scouting director when Houston signed Valdez in 2015, while the Mets president of baseball operations, David Stearns, was the Astros assistant GM at the time. Overall, what we're seeing is a New York Mets team that has connections to Valdez and wants to make a move for him. On top of that, we're also seeing a Mets team that wants to sign Kyle Tucker as well. What I'm saying here is pretty clear. The Mets overall, they are going all in. They see their opportunity. They see their window. And yeah, look, would the Mets have a lot of lefties and is Kyle Tucker kind of redundant to Juan Soto? Sure. Does it mean they should not go for him? Absolutely not. They should totally go for him. He's still Kyle Tucker. You could throw him in left field. He'll be fine out there, and overall, the New York Mets will be absolutely lethal, and it'll be viewed as a great offseason once again. Guys, how do you feel about this? Let me know in the comments down below. Like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Have a great day. I'll catch you later.